And now that you've all had an opportunity to actually do the work, build the blocks for our customer, and you've had an opportunity to observe the work, now what we would like to do is use the principles of the rules in use to help us make meaning of our observations and try to understand the design of our work system. So I'm going to ask a few questions that we can go through together and draw, and you can draw along with me to help you think about how does this work system actually work. So the first place that we always start when we're thinking about a drawing is thinking about the customer. I'm going to note up here. First, we want to look at our customer demand. So I'm going to draw our customer on the far right side. Who was our customer today?
This was our external customer that was looking for the 30 Lego blocks.
Yep, the block construction company. I'll just call it construction. When we think about the quantity, you mentioned that our customer required 30 blocks. Our quantity is 30 blocks. How many did we actually ship to our customer?
We shipped, well, we only loaded a partial truck, so we really didn't ship any because we had to ship once the trucks were full.
Okay, so we shipped 0.
Right.
Okay. Then we want to think about the type of demand that they had. What type of blocks did they have?
They were looking for red, white, and blue.
Okay.
And 10 of each.
So 10 red, 10 white, 10 blue blocks. And then we want to be thinking about the time that we had. So how long did we have to produce our blocks?
This shift was 4 minutes.
4 minutes. So we had 4 minutes to produce 30 blocks. The other, I'm going to make a note up here for takt time. So we learned that takt time is the definition of takt time. It really is, it's kind of the pace of our factory. And we want to base our factory based on what the customer demand actually is. So we had 240 seconds or 4 minutes to produce 30 blocks. So our takt time is 8 seconds. So essentially, if we can produce 1 block every 8 seconds, we'll meet our customer need. And I like to mention this at this point because takt time helps leaders think about efficiency of their process. Knowing what your customer demand is and how much time you actually have to produce it can really help you think about how quickly or at what pace workers need to produce something. Okay, so this is our customer information, our customer demand. Now let's take a look at our process. So if we think about customers and suppliers, we have our ultimate customer as the construction company. Our first question that we'd like to answer when we're thinking about process is who supplies what to whom? So we'll start with this customer. Who supplied blocks to this customer?
We had 3 people in our process, but the person who supplied the customer was the shipper.
The shipper, okay. I'm going to draw our shipper in our picture. I'm going to draw a solid line to show that the shipper gave the blocks to the customer. Now our next question is, how does the customer make a request? So how did our shipper know what the customer needed?
The shipper had a schedule of trucks with the color of the blocks needed on each truck.
Okay, so I'm going to draw our trucks in here. So our customer made a request of our organization. I'm just going to draw a little place here for central scheduling. And central scheduling provided this list of trucks for the shipper to use as a way to know what the customer needed. Okay. And then we think about, once we understand how our customer makes a request, then we want to think about how does our supplier respond? So what work did this shipper have to do during the course of our exercise?
The shipper would gather a completed block and then load it onto the truck.
Okay, so our shipper loaded the truck. The other thing that we would like to know related to the work that they did is about how long did it take to load the truck?
1 to 2 seconds.
Okay, 1 to 2 seconds. So we'll put that in our picture. The next thing that we need to understand is what problems occurred and which ones were solved. So during the course of your observation, did you observe any problems that the shipper had?
There's a lot of waiting time and a lot of downtime waiting for those completed blocks to be able to load the truck.
Okay, waiting. So I'm gonna put our, these are problem clouds, if you would.
Mhm.
I'm gonna put them in our picture above the shipper. And I'm gonna put them in red because
Sure.
they're problems. So there was waiting and there was downtime.
Yep.
They had time that when they were actually not working. And we think of that as downtime.
Mhm.
Were either of these problems solved during the course of the observation?
No.
Not solved. Okay, all right. Okay, so now we're gonna keep repeating these questions and go back through our process. So thinking about who supplies what to who supplied blocks to the shipper?
So the second person in the B role was supplying the completed blocks to the shipper.
So we have our B person supplying blocks to our shipper. Now, our next question is, how does our supplier, the B person, know what the shipper needed? How did they get their information?
The B person had a B schedule
Okay.
that had the color and quantity listed.
Okay, and they also received this information from their central scheduling department. So they got their information from here and they sent the blocks to the shipper.
Mhm.
Okay, so now that we understand how the B person got their information about what to do, now we want to think about what did they actually do? What
Sure.
was their work to?
The B person had to search through their inventory to find the right color and the
Okay.
right type of block.
Search inventory, okay,
And then they applied a 1x3 Lego and a 1x2 Lego to the subassembly.
okay. So I'm putting the add a 1x3 and add a 1x2 in these little blocks here. This indicates the value added work that the shipper did. And oftentimes we use a verb and a noun. So what did they do? They added a 1x3. They added a 1x2. This is value added work. You'll notice that I put search inventory below here to keep track of it, but it's not value added work. So I'm going to put it here. Was there any other work that this B person had to do? Periodically. They didn't have to do it every time, but periodically.
So within this process, the subassemblies had to be painted to match the order.
Okay,
And there was a changeover that was needed as part of that. So the B person was actually changing over their paint per the color that they were building on their schedule.
okay. Every time they changed the color, they had to build a changer. So now we can think about for the value added work, we're going to call this cycle time. So if we think about the cycle time of the B person, about how long did it take? And sometimes during observations, we'll time the work so we know exactly what it is. So to add a 1x3 and add a 1x2, about how long did it take our B person?
To add the 1x3 and the 1x2 was probably 3 to 4 seconds.
3 to 4 seconds. Okay. How about the work of searching inventory?
Boy, that could have been up to about 10 seconds.
About 10 seconds. Okay. And how about the work of the changeover periodically?
That was probably another 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Okay. So we'll put that in our picture to help us understand current conditions. Now our last question is, what problems occurred and were they solved? So did you observe any problems that the B person had?
Well, first of all, the sub-assemblies that B person was receiving weren't in the same order as their schedule.
Okay. So their schedule's not in order.
Yep.
Okay.
The inventory was a mess.
Okay.
It was difficult to find what was needed.
I'll put messy inventory. Hard to find what they're looking for.
Yep.
Okay.
The paint changeover took a lot of time, as compared to what they actually needed to do, which was adding the 1x3 and the 1x2.
Okay. And the fact that they were not receiving these in order, what was the result of that?
To begin with, there was a lot of waiting for the B person to be able to start their work.
Okay. So the B person had a lot of waiting also. Yeah, and I think during the observation, they had wait at least 30 seconds in the 4-minute shift.
Yep.
Did you observe any of these problems being resolved in the course of this observation?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on. So thinking about who supplies what to whom, who supplied the subassembly to the B person?
The third member of this team was the A person,
Okay.
the first person in this value stream.
Okay. so I'll put A person in here. How did the A person know what the B person needed?
The A person had an A schedule
Okay.
that had the quantity and color of the subassembly that they were to build.
Okay, and again, this is something they receive from central schedule. Okay, now we think about what was the work? What
Mhm.
was the work of the A person? What did they have to do?
So the A person, the work that they had to do was take a 2x4 and add a 1x4 to it.
Okay. Take a 2x4 and add a 1x4.
Mhm.
So this was the value added work, the assembly work of the A person. What else did the A person have to do?
Similar to the B person, they had to search their inventory to find the right parts to be able to make that subassembly.
Okay. We want to capture the timing. So
Mhm.
about how long did it take the A person to do their value added work?
Similar to B, about 3 to 4 seconds.
4 seconds. Okay. And the searching, the non-value added work, the searching.
Boy, there was a lot of unnecessary parts and pieces, so I'd say that was probably up to 10 seconds as well.
Okay. Okay, and how about problems for the A person? Did you observe any problems?
Similar, messy inventory, tough to find what was needed when it was needed. And it was clear that A schedule didn't match B schedule
Okay.
because when they completed, there was a lot of inventory in between A and B.
Okay, and through the course of the observation, did you observe any of these problems being solved?
No,
Okay, so they kind of had to deal with the problems.
they just dealt with it. Yep,
Yeah.
they worked a little faster, worked a little harder,
Okay.
and felt a little bit more stress.
Okay, all right. So this is a simple way to draw our current condition of the work process. And we see that this design, these people were working really hard, but this design allowed for our customer to not actually receive any blocks that they requested.
That's right.
So the next thing I'd like to take a look at is something called a work balance chart. The work balance chart helps us to see how much work in terms of time each person has in comparison to what their customer needed. So I'm just going to draw a little graph here. We're going to have our A, B, and shipper along our x-axis. And along the y-axis, we're going to have time. So just going to have little second increments here. And I'm going to make a note around 8 seconds. This is our takt time. This is what our customer required. Every 8 seconds, we produce a block. Now, if we look at our information that we just collected, I'm going to draw the value added time on our graph with a solid block. So we have about 3 to 4 seconds of value added work. So I'm going to put that here as a solid block. 3 to 4 seconds of value added work. And then if we look at our non-value added work, we had about 10 seconds for this person to search for their inventory. So this is at 8 seconds. So we're going to add 10 seconds to this. So it's going to look something like this. We have non-value added work. Now, how about our B person? A similar scenario here. So they had about the same amount of value added work, same amount of time they spent doing value added work. But if we add up the necessary non-value added work, we had about 10 seconds to search the inventory and 10 seconds to do the changeovers. So this looks something like this, even higher. And then our shipper took about 1 to 2 seconds to load the work.
Mhm.
And we can even question whether this is value added work. So I think
Sure.
I'm going to put it as necessary, but non-value added because it didn't really change the form or function of our blocks. But this was the amount of time that the shipper had.
Mhm.
So we can look at this work balance chart. What do you see as you look at the work balance chart here?
There's a couple things. One is in terms of balance, it's not balanced. The shipper has little work content, B has exorbitant amount, and A is somewhere in between. And then the other, you mentioned the takt time is what our customer requires, which means that these graphs need to be within that 8 seconds, and both A and B are above the 8 seconds. There's more than 8 seconds of work, so we can't meet our customer need.
We're not gonna be able to meet our customer need. And we see that as evidenced by what actually happened.
That's right.
We actually cannot meet our customer need with this type of a design.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is now that we understand our process and some of the problems within it, now we can work with our team members to actually try to solve the problems and move forward. So this is the opportunity that we have. We can make it visual. We can make it so everyone can understand
Mm-hmm.
and think about what the barriers are.
Yeah.
And if we think about applying the principles of the rules in use to this drawing, we can see if we think about rule number 1, our activity rule, which says each person should have highly specified work according to the content, sequence, timing, location, and expected outcome. We see that there was pretty standard way to assemble the blocks, which was great, but they had this additional non-value added work that they had to do. So we actually have some waste built into the process that we could think about taking out. We think about our connection rule when we have, I forgot to put this in here. Our connection rule, we should be simple, direct, and a binary communication between customers and suppliers. We see that we don't have that at all. In order to have a binary connection, we'd have a way for the customer to talk directly to their supplier and have a response. But you see, we have no direct connections between customers and suppliers. So that's a big problem in this design. And then our pathway should be simple, predefined, which it actually is without forks and loops. But we have a lack of the connections between customers and suppliers in between. So this process is not producing what it's intended to produce, which is the 30 blocks for our customer. And then the 4th rule, which is sometimes not even thought about, but is really important, is how do people get help in the course of work when problems happen? Ideally, it would happen at the lowest level in the organization where the problems occur, and we didn't see any of that. Under the guidance of a teacher, we didn't see any way for these people to ask for help or a person they could reach out to. Using scientific method thinking, we didn't see any type of problem solving happening at all. And then with scientific method thinking, they'd be able to improve according to the ideals of 1 by 1 on demand immediately, without waste, without error, and safely for everyone. And we didn't see any of that happen at all. So our rule number 4 is kind of non-existent in this work system. Thank you for your time.